Well, the day has finally arrived. Here is week 3 of the 2019 DCFL season. Here are the standings from week 2. As you can see right now, New York leads the Eastern Conference with Pittsburgh right behind them, and Charlotte, the third place team, as they would be the playoff seeds for right now. And then Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Jacksonville are right behind. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, Indianapolis continues to dominate, with Phoenix and Oakland being the wild card teams at the season today, with Chicago, Seattle, and LA taking up the rear of the division. So now we get to our week 3 games. So we start off week 3 with all the division matchups, of course, as my Baltimore Charm visit the Jacksonville Scouts after my team destroyed and shut out the LA Mean Green Machines 49-0 last week. Meanwhile, Jacksonville continues their hangover as they choked a game last week against Chicago, and Ahmad's already committed to tanking this year, funny enough, as he and Najee did a couple trades off screen, although it didn't make really any difference statistically. And my Charm would dominate Jacksonville as we won 52-38, as Jacksonville is now 0-3 on the season, and get this, they put up a gargantuan 660 yards, and they still lost. Oh my goodness, 660 yards and still couldn't get the W, as my team only got 400 yards pretty much, thanks to good defense, believe it or not. So my Charm off to a 2-1 start as the Scouts continue to suffer their hangover from the championship. It's starting to look like the championship game performance was more like an omen of what the season was going to be this year. And then after that, it's an all-Jake matchup as his teams, the Charlotte Bobcats, visit the Pittsburgh Power, as Charlotte suffered a hard-fought game last time out against Indianapolis. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh is 2 in a row, win both their games in overtime, which is both a good and bad indicator, but one of these teams is going to win here. And which one will it be? Will Pittsburgh stay undefeated for another week? They would not, as Charlotte beat them 20-6 to give them their first loss of the year, as we now have 3 teams in the Eastern Conference with 2-1 record right now. It's funny because neither team really struggled either offensively or defensively. It's obviously Chicago, Pittsburgh just could not get any points on the board, whereas Charlotte managed to do so. As they move to 2-1, Pittsburgh suffers their first loss. So now New York and Indianapolis remain the only undefeated teams. Speaking of New York, that's the next game, as they host the Philadelphia Sonics in a really big Eastern Conference game, as Philadelphia beat Oakland on the road last week in a really good offensive showing. Meanwhile, New York destroyed Seattle in an incredible defensive effort, as they've been on a roll so far this year, already looking like a contender for the Eastern Conference Championship. And New York would destroy Philadelphia 45-21 to stay undefeated, as they just completely shut down Philadelphia at first, going up 28-0. Finally, Philadelphia after that finally got their offense going, but by then it was too late, as New York was already out of reach, and they outscored them ever since too, if you look at the overalls. So a tough loss for Philadelphia, as New York now remains undefeated for another week. They have a 1-game lead against everyone else. Will Indianapolis join them, or will New York remain the only undefeated team? But so far, New York is looking like the team to beat in the Eastern Conference, surprisingly, because they went 6-12 last year. Then we go over to the Western Conference divisional games, as we look at one of the most lopsided games probably of the year so far, as the lowly, winless expansion LA Mean Green Machines visit the undefeated defending champs Indianapolis Rapid Stallions, who are on a roll so far this year, already scored 100 points in their first 2 games, as LA has not gotten anything going, especially after they got destroyed last week when they visited my Charm 49-0. Oh god, how could it get any worse than this? Turns out Indianapolis would get the win 38-17, however, it wasn't all good at all for Indianapolis, and believe it or not, LA actually got more yards than Indianapolis did, by 10. So yeah, LA had the better offense in terms of yards that game. It's just that they had 5 fumbles. Indianapolis recovered 2 of them, and that converted into scores that LA could have almost gotten instead. They were shut down completely until the 4th quarter, when they started to light up, and they almost went in for another touchdown, but Indianapolis managed to stop them beforehand. So Indianapolis beat LA, but it was not a convincing victory like the other 2 games were this year. So Indianapolis should be a little bit concerned, having a tough time against probably the worst team in the league right now at home. That should be a little bit of a concern going into next week. But hey, they're still undefeated right now, and looks like a weak conference right now. After that, we head out to Oakland as the Oakland Pillagers host the Seattle Tenyo. Remember, Oakland got their first win at the expense of Seattle last year. Once they try and get another win once again, as they lost to Philadelphia last week. Meanwhile, Seattle had one of the worst offensive showings last week when they got only 99 yards at home against New York, as they desperately need a win badly. And Oakland would destroy Seattle just like they did last year. 30-6, as once again, Seattle couldn't get anything going offensively. They got almost 300 yards, but that was not enough to stop the bleed that Oakland began at the very beginning of the game. And their defense, matter of fact, neither team's defense got anything going. All they did was just one sack each. No turnovers, fumbles, anything. It was just a complete and utter rout by Seattle as Oakland won on offensive showing, as they now move to 2-1, almost matching their win total from last year, as Seattle is off to a very bad start as one of the worst offenses in the league, and it's really hurting their defense now. And then we get to the final game of the week as the Chicago Steelers visit the Phoenix Devils, as both teams trying to get to 2-1 in the very hard-fought division so far. Indianapolis already beat Chicago, and they beat Jacksonville in a surprising game last week. Meanwhile, Phoenix lost a hard-fought game against Pittsburgh last week. One of these teams is going to win, and they badly need a win, too, to keep up against Indianapolis and now Oakland in this division. And Chicago would destroy Phoenix 26-3, as Phoenix would get the first score of the game on a field goal, but then Chicago ended up getting 26 unanswered points for the win, as they had almost 400 yards. As Phoenix, surprisingly, their defense played better compared to Chicago. Chicago's defense did nothing. Phoenix got 2 sacks and a fumble recovery, but their offense got not even 200 yards. That was probably one of the worst offensive showings in Phoenix history, as they got completely shut down by the Steelers' really good defense these last few weeks. Wonder why they didn't really show up against Indianapolis, as they moved to 2-1 and Phoenix falls to 1-2. But we're now 3 weeks into the season. As you can see, here's the current standings. In the Eastern Conference, the New York Gangsters lead, Charlotte's second, and Pittsburgh's third. My Charm are fourth. Philadelphia still remains fifth, and Jacksonville still sixth place. So if the season ended today, it would be Pittsburgh at Charlotte, with New York final who their opponent would be then. Then in the Western Conference, it's Indianapolis leading the division still, with Oakland number 2 and Chicago now number 3, as Phoenix falls to 4th, and Seattle and LA representatively stayed 5th and 6th. So the playoffs would be Chicago at Oakland. Whoever wins would face Indianapolis. So then we take a look at the Week 4 schedule, as we'll start off with Baltimore visiting Phoenix. That could be a tough game. Then a big one, outer conference, Charlotte at Oakland. One of these teams is going to get the 3 wins and get deep into the playoffs. And then week 4 after that will be the 2018 championship of last year rematch, as Jacksonville visits Indianapolis. Oh my God, could that be a bloodbath or an offensive shootout? And then it'll be Jacksonville at New York. Chicago at New York, to say, in a really big important game. And then Pittsburgh at Seattle. And then the expansion teams will go at as LA visits Philadelphia. And with that, week 3 of the 2019 DCFL seasons in the books, we still got 3 undefeated teams, and New York and Indianapolis remain undefeated. See what happens next time soon, as more of the 2019 DCFL season will appear, as we're nearing the quarter-way mark of the season. See you guys then.